And I will stand by for flashlight assistance. I can hold that for you all. Thank you. Hold on, I'm gonna just take this off.
Is it ready? Is it going?
It's going, yeah.
Nobody told you it was a party?
Just kidding.
Okay, let me get out of the way.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for the book launch of I Will Die on This Hill, Autistic Adults, Autism Parents, and the Children Who Deserve a Better World. I'm Jillian Nelson. A lot of you know me from the Autism Society of Minnesota, but tonight I am proud to be here as Jules Edwards' best friend and the writer of The Afterword. Jules gave me the last word in her book. For those of you that know me and Jules, me getting the last word is something that rarely happens. And tonight I'm going to be taking the first word. We thought it would be a fitting way to start the night off with the end. So I'm going to be reading from The Afterword. You are writing the afterword for the book. I was thrilled when Jules Volin told me that I would be given the last word in such an important conversation, as this is, in fact, a hill I have died 1,000 deaths on. And let's be honest, I'm spicy autistic and love getting the last word. As an autistic disability rights advocate, I spend a lot of time filling rooms with words, but I don't often get to fill pages of a book. So I set out to do this the same way I take on political strategizing, with a gigantic idea and a ton of research. I knew the people and the places and the things that needed talking about. So I started simple by looking up the definition of afterword. An afterword is a statement on the entire narrative, and it is frequently told from a different perspective and period of time. This is fitting. My perspective is quite different, as I am not a parent like Jules and Megan, and I joined this community with my diagnosis over 18 years ago, long before autism had lodged itself in either author's vocabulary. As such, I feel like I am in a different time period. When I was diagnosed, the rates of autism were 6 in 1,000 kids, and not a single book about adults with autism existed. There was no community outside of parents, and it was actually 7 years before I met another autistic woman, and it was Temple Grandin. Not exactly new BFF material. As someone with my tenure and diagnosis, I have seen growth beyond my wildest imagination. I have lived through the shift from pathology to culture and community. I have seen research change from causation and cure to access and support. And I have watched a garden of pride and diversity bloom. This book is the first of its kind. Trust me, I know, I also curate an autism bookstore. But this conversation has been happening for decades, just not with the insight and understanding this work sheds on the delicate topic of, you're not like my child. This conversation started in church basement support groups, before taking up digital space on AOL message boards. Then we moved to Angel Fire blogs and chat rooms and yearly conferences about autism, until we came to the current landscape of Facebook groups, meetups, walks, and more conferences than I could imagine attending. Though the space and time changed, each battlefield has one thing in common: parents versus self-advocates. No matter which venue, it is always flooded with generation after generation of new autistic adults earning battle scars of trauma as we wage war trying to make a difference for future generations. Some of my earliest memories as a newly diagnosed autistic adult was trying to find a community and being faced with hordes of autism moms telling me that my life experience and my identity and my perspective were wrong, invalid, harmful, and in a few conversations, retarded. This set the tone for my own reckoning with my new label and trying to understand and accept myself, and set a very solid foundation of post-traumatic stress disorder. I wish I could say that this has changed, but as recently as yesterday, these fights are still a regular occurrence. And as we read in all the pages that came before this, an unnecessary tradition in our community, and one that it is time to end. In all the fighting, we lost sight of two of the most important facts. Both groups want a better world for autistic kids, and autistic kids grow up to be autistic adults. These fights exist between these factions not because of us or because of them, but because the world we live in is not made for autistic people. Autistically, we move through our daily lives facing sensory hurricanes, social booby traps, and executive function time bottoms. And the parents are doing everything they know how to create shelters to protect their children from these hidden attacks. But I think we can agree there are places that we, both autistic children and autistic adults, should be able to feel safe in our homes, in our classrooms, and with our community. Megan and Jules talked about how they created unity in a space where there was discord. My hope is that as a community, we can learn from them and find the power in together. The power of creating a community and forging an autistic culture. The power is in the knowledge and education and lived experience. Turns out, autistic adults have a lot of knowledge about being autistic kids. And we even know some stuff about sensory challenges and executive function. Even better, we want to share our experiences. And at the same time, examine and accept that with great power comes great responsibility. Thanks, Spider-Man. The power that the autistic parents of autistic children bring is something very unique, but just as valuable. You bring a privilege we don't have. Being able to navigate the world without a disability means you can choose to be the MC of the show and call attention to the value autistic adults bring to the table. You have the power to center autistic voices, no matter how we choose to use them, whether verbally or using augmentative and alternative communication. Demand our seats at the table, defend our integrity, and help us get the accommodations we deserve and too often have to fight for. You have the power to normalize this level of inclusion and respect. When I see parents and autistics fighting, most of the time I can see the same end goal, the better life for the autism community. Somewhere in all the trauma and all the fear, we forget that. I often ask parents in that moment if they would want someone to treat their child this way, or speak to them disrespectfully, or just credit their feelings when they are an adult. The answer has unanimously been no, absolutely not. Parents know what they want for their kids' future. They want them to be respected and valued and loved. And we can guarantee that happens by how we treat autistic adults today. As a parent, each time you make the choice to support adults openly and visibly, you are telling your child that when they grow up, they can do anything they want, and it's reasonable to believe there will be people there to support them so they can exist proudly and authentically, autistically as themselves. The more you show them this, the more they will know. After all, repetition and consistency are everything in teaching autistic kids. When I started my career in the nonprofit world, I set my goal as change the world. I didn't know what that looked like, but I knew I wanted to make the world better for every autistic person that came after me. I learned quickly that being a radical feminist, queer, polyamorous, leftist autistic adult was not going to sit well with the cool kids in the parent and professional autism community. So I learned how to mask. I hid the radical parts of myself. I concealed anything that wouldn't make them wish their children would grow up to be like me. And I presented myself as the new poster child for a successful adult with autism. What I didn't realize at that time was that I was internalizing ableism and allowing the thinly drawn margins of what was acceptable to dictate who I could be as an autistic leader. Even though I didn't see it as it was happening, this had giant impacts on my own mental health and my self-esteem because I was spending most of my time being something I wasn't. And as such, I was also teaching other autistic people that their true self wasn't okay and that success could be theirs if they could learn to play the game right. I hold a lot of guilt for that message, but in the spaces with the people that held all the keys, this is what I had been expected to do if I wanted to be successful. Even in spaces that were supposed to be focused on helping people with autism succeed. I didn't know there was another way yet. 5 years ago, I came to work at my current organization. I finally found freedom to let that mask melt away, and a space where being my true, authentic, autistic self was the best tool I had for building bridges, creating change, and helping others. It was there that I finally figured out that there are 1,000 ways to be autistic, and that I have the freedom to exist exactly as I am, even if that was constantly changing. Within that freedom, I found something I have been chasing my entire adult life: success and the ability to change the world. Well, at least Minnesota legislation and the minds of people I speak to in training, but it's a start. The unspoken expectation that adult advocates become the poster child within the community is a sophisticated form of oppression, because not only does it encourage ableism within ourselves, but it pits us against each other. If there's only one right way to be autistic, then all the other ways must be wrong. And if we aren't the one that is right, no one will see us, and we will fade away without being seen or heard. Too often, the poster child concept in our community erases any lens of intersectionality. We have historically been seen as a community collection of young boys, white, probably wearing a polo shirt and playing with trains. The poster of what autism is expected to be erases the concept of fluid gender and sexuality, or a collection of skin colors other than one. It erases economic challenges, it hides support needs, and it most certainly does not reflect the reality of systemic racism and queer erasure that is blatant in the disability community. The only option for our community to thrive and flourish is to stop dying on hills, battling within our own camp. There are larger enemies if we find the common ground and embrace the concept of stronger together from a disability justice perspective. The disability justice perspective is the idea that we fight for the most marginalized in our community, led by the most marginalized in our community. This concept is not that different from triage in a medical setting. We help those most injured first to avoid the worst possible outcome. If we embrace this concept that everyone should have access to service and support, no matter what privilege they bring to the table, we're going to improve services for everyone. If we push for all systems to be accessible for the people with the biggest communication and executive function challenges, everyone will have better access. If we normalize inclusion and appropriate supports, then no one will have to fight for the bare minimum. We must erase the concept of privilege and social capital as the gatekeepers for a meaningful life for children and adults with autism. The enemy is not the blunt adult perseverating on applied behavior analysis research. The enemy is not the parent wearing a puzzle piece t-shirt, but please don't. The enemy is the system that makes it so exhausting for families to get in-home supports. It is the bias that creates inequity in IEPs. It is the administrative burden that makes county services or Social Security a multi-year battle. If we fight these systems from the perspective of the community as a whole, then we can create a better outcome for everyone. So it's time. I challenge everyone reading this, both parents and advocates, to put down our swords and hold ourselves accountable for what has happened in the past, but also move forward with forgiveness and humbleness. There is no shame in realizing you were previously speaking from a less informed place. There is no shame in accepting that we have room to learn and grow still. I am regularly reaching out to Jules for guidance as I do my own work to unpack my white privilege and grow as an ally to the BIPOC autistic community. When we commit to changing ourselves to be the best advocates for what our community needs versus being advocates for the best for ourselves, we find ourselves working not as a solo mission, but with the strength of an army, with a voice that is not a whisper, but with a booming volume that cannot be ignored. If we come together as a united community, what we can accomplish and what we can change is immeasurable. Finding our community and our unity isn't just something for the battlefields, but also something we can find in friendship. I am the strongest version of myself because of the friendships I surround myself with. While a great number of them are other adults like me, I am also grateful to share loving and caring relationships with many parents of children like me. And when we find that space to value and treasure one another beyond the transactional model of working spaces, then we find a brilliantly beautiful level of understanding and support. Whether they learn from me as they watch me connect with their children over story time or parallel play, or I'm supported by them through a hellscape of paperwork regarding disability benefits, or we just enjoy one another's company over cocktails or food. We become stronger, healthier, wiser, more supported because we are together. Dare I say we do better. As a wise senator in Minnesota once said, "We all do better when we all do better." All Wellstone. With that, I will give up my reign as first word and last word and turn this over to the amazing Jules Edwards and Megan.
Why are you? She's running away from her gift.
It says the last word. I might get this tattooed.
I know just where you can put that one, Jillian. Thank you. So you gave your actual last word to Paul Wellstone, which I was like, what? So I gave it back to you. There you go.
Jules yelled at me for giving my last word to a dead one.
I did absolutely yell at Jillian for giving her last word to a dead white man. That's real. Yeah. So thank you all so much for being here. I'm so excited and a little bit overwhelmed, but in a wonderful way. I had no idea where to start, what to read until like 5 minutes ago. So I'm just going to start at the beginning. Kind of an introduction to the book so you know what you just bought, because some of you probably don't know. It's a real thing. So I appreciate you being here and your support. So my first chapter is chapter 2. And Megan and I put a rhythm in this book where we began with Megan's voice, because as a holistic parent of autistic children, she's often heard first. Parents are listened to far more often than disabled people are listened to. And as we move through the book, each section, we have a contributor, a guest writer for each section. And somewhere through the middle of the book, we shift so that my chapter comes before Megan's, because we want everyone who reads to change their approach to advocacy and listening to disabled adults. So, without further ado, chapter 2, A Different Lens. I am indigenous to Turtle Island, an Ojibwe matriarch, Eagle Clan, colonized, decolonizing, and trying to discover who I am and where I fit in. I'm an autistic adult. I am a parent of autistic children. I don't have the option to choose whether I'm one or the other, I'm both. For me, there are no sides to choose from, because if I choose a side, I'd be ripped into pieces. For some, I'm too autistic. For others, I'm not autistic enough. For my children, I'm just mom. For me, I'm a person trying to live in a good way. Many autistic people are idealists. We want the world to be just. We have a strong sense of right and wrong, and we may get stuck on this is how it should be. So it can be hard to switch modes to this is how it is in this moment, and there are ways we can help change things to how we think it should be. For those of us who choose to engage in meaningful and productive conflict, there can be a pressure to abandon the idea of working together for incremental progress. I hate incremental progress. I want enormous progress immediately. I want accessibility and inclusion and safety immediately, and I know that is impossible in this world. I would love nothing more than to write off the people I feel are unreachable, to shrug my shoulders and walk away. But that's a privilege to decide that I'm not directly impacted by people whose efforts work against disability justice. So I take my seat at the table across from people who think I'm puzzling, rude, and stealing their child's disability resources, and I try to find some middle ground. If I can just nudge them in the right direction, maybe we can make a little bit of progress. I'll keep pushing for more radical change at the same time. Advocacy work is painful at times, and I'm moving forward with hope that the future will be brighter for my children and future generations of autistic people. I have cried over failed initiatives. I have celebrated big wins with cake and champagne. I'm here writing half a book in hopes that it will sway every parent into the direction of working towards disability justice because their children matter to me too. I also want to share a funny story from later in the book. I have to re-find it because I lost it. Where did it go? I should ask Kimberly, what chapter is the chair thing?
That is chapter 8, I believe.
It is, thank you. Kimberly has been such a huge help through writing, editing,
Yes.
everything.
I love that story.
I do too. It's so funny, guys. Are you ready?
Ready.
It was midwinter, and Jonathan was in the 2nd grade when I got my near daily call from the dean of students. Hello, Jonathan is here in my office. He was standing on a chair. Will you please speak to him? I'll be right there, I replied with a heavy sigh. In my mind, I thought, well, did you tell him to get down? Be an adult. Clearly, he's not still standing on the chair if he's in your office. My office was located across the street from the boys' school. I was so frequently called to the school that I needed to be minutes away for whatever crisis or discipline reason that the school staff couldn't seem to manage. I changed my shoes into my winter boots, grabbed my coat, and told my supervisor I was taking my 15-minute break and I'd be back shortly. She smiled at me with sympathy on her face. I trudged across the parking lot, across the street, up the hill to the school and into the office. They buzzed me in without a word, knowing I knew where to go. Jonathan was sitting on a chair in the dean's office, swinging his legs under the seat. He smiled when he saw me. I tilted my head and half smiled at him, knowing. We both knew there was no reason for me to be called, much less any reason for me to be in the office. I ignored the dean. I took off my boots, stepped carefully onto the chair, and turned to face Jonathan. He covered his mouth with both hands and his shoulders shook with giggles. What am I doing? I asked him, pretending to be confused. You're standing on a chair, he guffawed. Is this what I'm supposed to do with the chair? I asked. Giggles escaped between his hands as he replied, no. Okay. I smiled, stepped down, put my boots back on, and left. I did not look at or speak to the dean this time. I didn't have anything nice to say. As I walked back to work, I wondered why they called me. I wondered why they picked on my son for the most petty reasons. Why couldn't they just be adults? I had other tasks to take care of during my break, and now they would have to wait. As I returned to my desk, my supervisor checked in to make sure I was okay. Of course, I responded cheerfully. At the time, I didn't know anything about disability or inclusion. I just knew that I wished the other adults could be helpful. I wish other adults knew how to communicate with my son in a way that de-escalated conflict, built relationships, and helped him learn. The power struggles instigated by adults with the attitude that children should comply because I said so only made things harder. I didn't understand why people insisted on obedience without teaching or reasoning with a child. Their choice to engage in power struggles, rather than meeting him where he was at, rather than providing support, rather than developing inclusive relationship-based interventions, resulted in 169 pages of behavioral referrals in 2 academic years. Thank you. So I would like to invite Kimberly to come up.
I don't know that I can read this. That is so helpful, yes. Thank you. Okay. So, spend a lot of time on social media, mostly on pages or in groups that have something to do with autistic people. Even when I'm in spaces that have nothing to do with autistic people, the subject eventually comes up. I've come across parents of autistic children on science pages, in chronic illness groups, news outlets, and many other sites. Whenever this happens, I almost always know how parents will respond when I reply to a comment they make about their autistic child. The reaction isn't determined by the type of person drawn to that page or anything that I say specifically. It almost always comes down to whether or not I disclose the fact that I'm autistic before I engage with that parent. When I enter a space and start talking to a parent, it is assumed that I'm allistic unless otherwise stated. I've taken advantage of that so many times. Almost every single time I play the role of a neurotypical parent, the other parent views me as someone that they can relate to. They see me as someone that they can empathize with, how exciting it is for them. I'm not actually reading that. I practice reading this, and so I'm just going by what I remember. Okay, so how exciting it is for them to find a parent on their favorite site and someone that they can talk to. Okay, I still speak to those parents in the same manner that I speak to anyone. I don't change my delivery, my sentence structure, or word choice. I still say the same things and have the same advice that I always do. I know that this can be really hard to hear for some parents. No one wants to believe that what they've been doing less than stellar for their child. But when I say those really hard to hear things, I get met with questions instead of hostility, and the conversation continues nicely. Of course, there are those exceptions, those parents that just want to be validated. Most parents, though, genuinely have their child's best interest at heart and want to hear an idea if it means their child's life could be better. In other instances, a parent might be aware that I'm autistic. I might even start by telling them so. When that's the case, every single word that I say has a different connotation. I don't change what I say or how I say it. My delivery and my advice are exactly the same. But suddenly, these parents don't see me as someone that they can relate to. It doesn't matter that I am also raising autistic children. I must only know what it's like to be an autistic person. In most of these conversations, I only get one comment in before they make a remark letting me know that they weren't interested in hearing from me in the first place, and they don't want to hear from me again. A lot of times, I can tell that these parents haven't read past the fact that I'm autistic. They're no longer interested in anything I have to say. Instead of asking questions or saying something back to me that would further the dialogue, the conversation is done. As a community of autistic adults, we need parents to learn to trust that we have their child's best interest at heart. We've been in their child's shoes and want to help the next generation not go through what we have been through. We need parents to recognize us as their best assets and how am I reading?
You're doing
Take your
amazing.
time. Take your time. We're like,
I'm not, but I'm not crying, so we're good. Okay. We need parents to understand that, to recognize us as their best asset and understanding their child's point of view. But that's hard for them to see, so they dismiss us. As we've grown into adults, we don't resemble their child anymore, but we used to. Support needs to change when we grow up. We get called bullies, rude, hostile, abusive, and many other things. Ironic how I'm not called any of those things when the parents think I'm autistic like they are, even though I'm saying exactly the same thing. The bottom line is these parents are seeking us out for advice. There is a child that needs help, and making sure that the next generation grows up with more acceptance and love is always a goal. So if I know that parents are more willing to listen to me when they think that I am their neurotypical peer than when they think that I am an autistic adult, then I have a decision to make. Do I want to be seen and heard as an autistic adult? Or do I want to be listened to? And where does that get me to? I realize that this should not be an either-or situation. We should be able to exist as autistic adults, embrace our identity, and speak our truths. However, I do not believe that announcing my neurotype is more important than helping that child. There are times that I could not avoid being the autistic adult in the room. Think I proved that right now. And I would never deny that I'm autistic. But I will do whatever I need to do to reach that parent so that I can help their child. That is the ultimate goal of me engaging that parent to start with. Even if I have to withhold the fact that I am autistic, I made the right choice for me because that child got the support that they needed.
Amazing. No, she's fine. Right. And yes, you get a
Megan will be here shortly.
no. And scene, you're cut off.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Megan.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Megan.
Hey, Megan, how you been doing?
Okay. Not nervous at all. Got it. My name is Megan, and
Hi,
I am.
Megan.
Hi.
Hey,
I just want to thank Jules for co-authoring this book with me and agreeing to do that, and Jillian for having the last word because that is so important to have, and for Kimberly for all of the things. I appreciate you, and for y'all coming out to join us. I'm gonna do what Jules did and just read a short excerpt from 2 different sections. My first chapter is called "If I Only Knew Back Then." He didn't feed the baby doll. Jay, my youngest child, brought me a snack the other night with some of my favorites: tortilla chips, shredded cheese, and a diet Mountain Dew. He separated them all out in a divided container because he knows I don't like my food to touch. 4 years ago, when I took Jay for his autism assessment, the clinician asked him to feed a baby doll. Jay had never had a doll before. It's not like we were against it, but we had 4 boys and nobody asked, so we didn't have one. He looked at the doll and immediately turned away. The clinician performing the assessment told me that he didn't feed the doll because he didn't care about the doll's feelings, that he lacked empathy. I knew it wasn't true, but the assertions that some professionals make, no matter how wrong we know they are, have a way of seeping into our subconscious. They make us second guess all of the wonderful things that we know about our children. They cause us to micromanage and scrutinize every move our children make, ultimately losing that time that we could have been spending on enjoying our kids and nourishing our relationships. It wasn't until I found the autistic community that I began to unpack and unlearn the misinformation I was taught when I first started this journey with my children. It wasn't until I found the autistic community that I began to start trusting myself as a parent and trusted my children to navigate the world in their own unique ways. Their insight is invaluable because they too have been misjudged countless times. And they're setting the record straight about these outdated and often harmful theories. What chapter is this? From chapter 9, the section called Pivotal Moments. An autistic child's diagnosis appointment is one of the most pivotal moments that I can think of for both the children and the parents. I can't think of a parenting moment past the infant stage when I was more receptive to learning than I was during that time. I was an open book, confused about what autism is, and eager to learn how to best support my child. I intentionally use the word pivotal to describe this moment in time, envisioning a point guard at a basketball game. Here we are with this diagnosis. We're actively seeking out guidance to direct our next move. We're trusting our team, even though we haven't seen this particular playbook yet. We're sweaty and out of breath. Wait, I took that too far. Instead of that useless folder or the 100-day kit, what I needed was an autistic dream team. I needed Cal Montgomery to school me on my child's communication rights. I needed Lyric Holmans to give me empowerment pep talks. I needed Darla B to help me personalize Jay's AAC device. I needed Angelina to point out the intersectional issues that would most definitely come up. I needed the autistic science person to lead me to more resources. All of these advocates are accessible to any parent, whether they're in autistic-led groups, running their own websites, or speaking at conferences. It just sucks that it took me so long to find them. It wasn't until I found the autistic community that my understanding of autism changed. It wasn't until I found them that I returned to my roots of developmentally appropriate practices and focusing on emotional health. Their guidance and firsthand knowledge reinforced everything good I already knew about my children. Once I found them, I no longer sought out ways to fix my own children, but focused my energies where they all actually belonged, on support, protection, and empowerment. Parents, how much different would your perspective right now be if you had access to the autistic dream team at this pivotal moment instead of whatever you got? Put yourself in your child's shoes and imagine. Growing up feeling valued as the person you are. Hearing your parents talk about learning your favorite topic. Connecting with other neurodivergent people. Feeling proud of yourself. Learning how to advocate for yourself. Feeling valued as the person you are. Yes, I listed it twice because it's important. Now that's more better.
Where are you going?
I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here.
What did you just do to the
I don't
internet?
know. It's like, hey DJ, I see you watching. Who's watching?
Okay.
Hey mom. Yes, hey mom.
Okay.
Hi, internet.
Tell Barb hi.
Everybody said, hey, Barb.
So,
Okay.
so now that we're done saying hello to everyone we know online, not everyone, because so many of you are here. I just want to say thank you again so much for being here and celebrating. This is a party, so we're here to celebrate. We have lots and lots and lots and lots of snacks over there, so please like gorge yourself. And there's a cash bar over here.
Kateri made a drink.
Okay.
Kateri made a drink that's
Oh.
called I Want to Die on This Hill.
We have a
Yes, we
drink.
have a drink.
Oh my gosh. Hey, internet, we have a drink. What's in it?
Vodka.
Vodka has brought me to many nights on message boards with parents.
So I think we're gonna be done reading, right?
We're done
We
reading.
had a couple other contributors who were hoping to be here tonight who couldn't be here, so we're bummed, but maybe we can convince them to do some videos or something and we can share them. So thank you again.
And thanks to everyone online. I see y'all's comments. Y'all
Yes.
are so dope.
Oh.
Hey, look, I told you CJ's here. He's a Lego.
So next we are going to, I think we have a few more books. If anybody would like to purchase a book, Megan and I are going to sign books. Jillian is going to be thrilled to sign every book. She'll probably sign the ones that I haven't even sold yet. Kimberly is willing to sign some books too. So I think that's it. Bye, internet.
Oh, my double chin all up.
Jules, come here. Ellie's on this internet. Hi, Ellie. Ellie's on my internet.
Hi, Bobby. Hi,
Ellie,
DJ
now you're
said
famous
it.
on my blog too.
DJ said we have a
Okay, guys,
double
thank you so much. We're gonna go sign books.
Okay, we're gonna go. Thank you. Hey,
Such an amazing.
Marinda Gang.
I do want to have a quick discussion here with Not an Autism Mom, Megan Ashburn. A few months ago, I asked you about the list you have on your website of all the important books parents need to read. I think it's time to add one officially.
What do y'all think? W.
Do we add this
Is that a
book?
W?
Do we add this book to the Megan Ashburn book recommendation?
you
I'm
know-
good another hug.
Yes.
Have a good night, everyone. We're gonna go sign some books. Thanks for joining us.
You like that? Okay, bye, y'all. We were gonna go. Hey, Lindsay, I see you. Hey, Andrea. Trisha, I see you. Bobby. Oh, Angelina, I see you.
Where's Angelina?
She's me.
Oh, yes, I remember.
We're not gonna drink too much because there's no such thing. No, I'm not driving.
Right, you
Bye,
guys
DJ.
supposed
I
to drive
love
were good.
We're going bye-bye. I was saying hi to
Bye-bye.
everybody. I see Claudia.
You've been designated
Mom,
the
I don't know
driver.
if he is here.
You're the designated driver.
I haven't
We
seen
already
him, but
told
it doesn't
you
mean he's not
that.
here. I'm gonna go check out everybody. Hey, mommy.
Did we get a lot of comments?
Trisha.
Love you, Barb.
Hi, internet. Oh, okay. We got all kinds of.
Hey, Paige. Trisha. Ellie. Ellie Hunja.
Miranda.
Guys, are we still live?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi,
I'm just
people.
looking through.
Thank you for watching us. I'm sorry you can't be here, but I'm really happy that you're online.
I don't know, Mom. I have to see. She says key or I haven't seen her yet, but maybe. I'm not sure. I'm gonna go look for her. Okay, bye. We're gonna go. Bye. I'll let you know, Mom.
Can somebody take a picture of me on my phone?
Yes.